Tonight, it all began tonight. West Side Story wasn't just a dazzling Hollywood musical, it was a powder keg of chaos, clashing egos, and dangerous choices hidden behind song and dance. What looked like seamless choreography was born out of grueling rehearsals, harsh working conditions, and simmering rivalries. From on-set injuries to racial controversies, the film carried scars beneath its polished surface. Today, we're uncovering 15 dark facts about West Side Story that audiences never saw. And wait until you hear the bonus fact. It's the most shocking of all. Stay tuned, because the truth behind the dancing is messier than anyone imagined. Let's begin. Natalie Wood couldn't sing a note. Natalie Wood was cast as Maria for her beauty and name recognition, not her voice. The studio promised her she'd sing her own songs, but behind closed doors, they hired Marni Nixon to dub her vocals. Wood was kept in the dark until after filming wrapped, believing her own voice would be used. She poured her heart into rehearsals, recording full takes of every song. But when she discovered the deception, she felt humiliated, her work erased. The betrayal haunted her, feeding into her lifelong insecurities about being taken seriously as an actress. What audiences didn't know, every soaring high note in West Side Story wasn't Natalie at all. It was Nixon's ghostly presence, another woman hidden behind Maria's face. The contrast between Wood's passionate acting and someone else's voice creates a haunting disconnect that lingers every time you rewatch the film. Rita Moreno faced racist makeup. Rita Moreno, who played Anita, endured a cruel irony. Despite being Puerto Rican herself, the studio demanded she wear darker brown makeup to appear more ethnic. Makeup artists smeared her skin with what Moreno later called muddy brown paint, while some background actors with no Latino heritage were also painted brown. The hypocrisy was staggering. Authentic identity was erased while stereotypes were exaggerated. Moreno hated the process, but she was pressured into compliance. Off camera, she confessed to feeling ashamed, knowing her real heritage was being caricatured for Hollywood's profit. Not even her eventual Oscar win could wash away the sting of that humiliation. Behind the film's vibrant colors, the makeup chair told a darker story of how Hollywood controlled racial narratives with brushes and pigments. It wasn't authenticity, it was artifice, imposed at the cost of dignity. Jerome Robbins was fired mid-shoot. Jerome Robbins, the legendary choreographer, demanded brutal perfection. He rehearsed the cast for months, drilling every gesture, every kick, every glance, until exhaustion broke their bodies. But Robbins clashed with producers over time and money. His obsessive methods caused massive delays, ballooning costs. Eventually, the studio made a shocking call. They fired Robbins mid-production. Yet, his fingerprints were everywhere, so strong that the dancers continued to follow his methods even after his departure. Co-director Robert Wise was left to finish the film, inheriting a fractured set filled with fear and loyalty to Robbins' ghost. The irony, Robbins won an Oscar for Best Director despite being kicked off. What audiences didn't know, every graceful movement in the film was born from sweat, tears, and the shadow of a man who was no longer welcome on set. The cast was split into real gangs. To heighten realism, Robbins devised a cruel trick. He kept the Jets and Sharks separated, not just on camera but off it as well. Cast members were forbidden from socializing with actors from the rival gang. He encouraged tension, whispering insults and stoking real rivalries. The result? Fights, resentment, and emotional scars. Some actors admitted the hostility became so real that they struggled to shake it off when cameras stopped rolling. The illusion of two bitterly divided gangs wasn't entirely acting, it was manipulation. Robbins wanted raw energy, but he left a trail of damaged friendships and bruised trust. The method worked on screen, but behind it was an experiment in cruelty. Not camaraderie, but calculated division. Dangerous stunts left actors injured. The dance numbers looked magical, but they were dangerous. Actors weren't just executing choreography, they were leaping off platforms, fighting with real weapons, and dodging moving set pieces. Safety protocols in 1961 were minimal. George Chakiris, who played Bernardo, nearly broke his ankle during a rooftop sequence. Others walked away with bruises, sprains, and cuts hidden under costumes. One wrong move could have been catastrophic. The fight scenes in particular blurred lines between choreography and real combat. Cast members later admitted they often feared for their safety, with only luck preventing serious tragedy. What the audience saw as graceful danger was, in reality, raw risk. The film captured lightning in a bottle, but it came at the cost of battered bodies and silent suffering. Behind the polish was a war zone of sweat and blood. George Chakiris almost lost the role. George Chakiris, unforgettable as Bernardo, wasn't the studio's first choice. Executives originally eyed actors with bigger star power. Chakiris had to audition multiple times, even though he had already danced in the London production of West Side Story. The irony? He had played Riff, the jet leader, on stage. When cast as Bernardo, he felt out of place, his body trained for the opposite role. To prove himself, he rehearsed obsessively, sometimes until his feet bled. Yet studio insiders whispered doubts. Was he too refined, too polished for a gang leader? The insecurity shadowed him, even after his Oscar win. The public saw a confident Bernardo commanding the screen. What they didn't see was an actor who nearly lost the chance, who battled doubt behind every kick and snap. Not destiny, but desperation carried him into that role. Natalie Wood's on-set breakdown. Behind Maria's wide-eyed innocence, Natalie Wood suffered crushing stress. Already insecure about her singing, she also feared being overshadowed by Rita Moreno's magnetic performance. Rumors spread that Wood felt isolated from the cast, who resented her star privilege. One day during filming, Wood reportedly collapsed into tears after blowing multiple takes of an emotional scene. Crew members remembered her sobbing, "I can't do this." Yet cameras kept rolling, capturing fragments of her breakdown. Director Robert Wise had to coax her back, but the damage lingered. Wood feared the film would expose her as a fraud. Ironically, her fragility fed Maria's vulnerability, creating one of cinema's most haunting performances. The world saw tender love. Behind the lens, it was an actress shattering under unbearable weight. The Sharks faced pay inequality. Even as West Side Story celebrated Puerto Rican pride on screen, inequality festered behind the scenes. Many Latino cast members, including Rita Moreno and George Chakiris, were paid significantly less than their white counterparts. Some dancers earned close to union minimums, while others pocketed generous contracts. Moreno later revealed that this disparity was never acknowledged by producers. Instead, the Sharks were treated as supporting color, both literally and financially. The contradiction was brutal. A film preaching equality and love secretly perpetuated the very injustices it portrayed. That tension simmered in the choreography itself. Sharks danced not only with style, but with suppressed rage. What audiences didn't know was that every leap carried the weight of real-world inequity. It wasn't fiction, it was exploitation, written in pay stubs. Jerome Robbins's sadistic terror tactics. Robbins wasn't just demanding, he was cruel. To heighten realism, he reportedly threatened actors with replacement if they didn't meet his impossible standards. He would stop rehearsals, humiliate dancers in front of the cast, and even encourage rivalries to the point of hostility. Some called his approach psychological warfare. Rita Moreno remembered him screaming at performers until they shook with fear. Yet Robbins believed terror forged truth. If they hate me, they'll channel it into their characters. It worked. Every glare, every clenched fist drips with authentic fury. But the cost was lasting trauma. Cast members described the experience as both the highlight and the darkest ordeal of their careers. On screen, it was electricity. Off screen, it was abuse disguised as artistry. The balcony scene nearly collapsed. The iconic balcony scene looks timeless, but the set itself was a disaster waiting to happen. Built hastily on a soundstage, the wooden balcony wasn't secured properly. During one rehearsal, parts of the railing wobbled dangerously as Natalie Wood leaned over to sing Tonight. Crew members rushed to stabilize it, terrified she might fall. Instead of rebuilding it, the set was patched up with quick fixes, hidden nails, sandbags, and whispered prayers. Every time Wood climbed those steps, the cast held their breath. What looked like a symbol of soaring romance was, in reality, a death trap. Had one board snapped, the tragedy would have been real. It wasn't magic. It was risk masquerading as romance. And before we dive into the next set of shocking facts, go ahead and like and subscribe, because what's coming will make you see this classic in an entirely different light. Rita Moreno almost quit mid-shoot. Rita Moreno delivered one of the most electrifying performances in cinema history, but few knew she almost walked away. During the filming of the rape scene at Doc's drugstore, Moreno was overwhelmed. The hostile energy Robbins demanded from the Jets triggered personal memories of her own trauma. She later admitted she fled the set in tears, unable to continue. For a moment, she contemplated quitting the entire production. Producers coaxed her back, promising sensitivity, but little changed. The scene was shot with real menace, leaving Moreno shaken for days. The world saw Anita's defiance, but what lingered behind the lens was an actress reliving pain for the sake of authenticity. It wasn't performance, it was re-traumatization. Moreno's eventual Oscar was a triumph, but it carried the shadow of the suffering she endured just to get there. The film nearly got a different ending. Audiences know West Side Story ends with Maria grieving over Tony's body, a Shakespearean tragedy transposed to New York. But studio executives toyed with altering the ending. Early memos reveal discussions about a less bleak conclusion, where Tony survives or Maria sings a reprise of Tonight to soften the despair. Director Robert Wise fought against it, insisting that tragedy was essential. Robbins, too, argued that sanitizing the story would destroy its power. For weeks, there was tension between commerce and art. The studio feared audiences wouldn't embrace such bleakness in a musical. In the end, Wise and Robbins prevailed. But the mere possibility shows how close West Side Story came to losing its iconic gut punch. What audiences didn't know is they almost walked out of theaters with a smile instead of tears. Not timeless tragedy, but Hollywood compromise. The Oscars came with backlash. West Side Story swept the Academy Awards, winning 10 Oscars, including Best Picture. But behind the glory was controversy. Some critics argued the film was overrated, praising its choreography but slamming its direction and narrative. Others resented that Jerome Robbins, fired mid-production, shared the Best Director Oscar with Robert Wise. Industry insiders whispered that Robbins' award was more political than deserved. Meanwhile, Rita Moreno made history as the first Latina woman to win an Oscar, but even her victory carried backlash. Hollywood praised diversity on stage while continuing to marginalize Latino performers off it. The Academy showered the film with gold, but backstage conversations were more cynical. What audiences didn't know, those shiny statues masked fractures, bitterness, and the uneasy truth that West Side Story was both celebrated and condemned at once. Natalie Wood's death casts a shadow backward. 2 decades after West Side Story, Natalie Wood's mysterious death in 1981 retroactively haunted the film. Fans revisited her fragile performance as Maria, searching for signs of the troubled star behind the character. Co-stars recalled her isolation on set, her insecurities, her desperate need for approval. When her death under suspicious circumstances on a yacht made headlines, it colored her legacy, and by extension, the film itself. Watching Maria grieve, Tony suddenly felt like a cruel foreshadowing of Wood's own fate. A young woman adored on screen but consumed by tragedy off it. The movie wasn't just a love story anymore. It became a lens through which fans mourned Wood all over again. What was once youthful innocence now feels haunted, a ghostly echo of the star who never escaped Hollywood's grip. Rivalries outlasted the shoot. The Sharks and Jets disbanded when cameras stopped rolling, but rivalries lingered. Cast members admitted that years later, bitterness remained. Some felt their contributions were undervalued compared to others. Natalie Wood's dubbing scandal left resentment among those who believed her performance was artificially elevated. Rita Moreno's Oscar win sparked jealousy from co-stars who felt overlooked. Even reunions decades later were tinged with tension. The camaraderie seen on screen was never fully real. The divide Robbins enforced didn't disappear when the lights went down. It hardened into memory. What audiences didn't know? Behind the joyous curtain calls and anniversary celebrations were actors who still carried old wounds. Not unity, but scars remained from a production that broke as much as it built. The film sparked real-life violence. The darkest legacy of West Side Story didn't play out in Hollywood, it spilled into the streets. After the film's release, newspapers reported instances of gang members imitating the Jets and Sharks, choreographing their fights to music and rhythms. In New York, one fight even ended in a stabbing, with police blaming the influence of the movie. Instead of softening urban tensions, some argued it glamorized them. The irony was brutal. A film meant to condemn violence may have inspired more of it. What audiences didn't know is that the boundary between art and reality blurred dangerously. The musical wasn't just entertainment, it became fuel for real bloodshed. West Side Story dazzled audiences with its colors, choreography, and music. But behind the beauty lay a film riddled with deception, inequality, trauma, and risk. Its legacy is one of brilliance born from suffering. Even today, the songs soar while the secrets sting. So, what do you think? Was it worth it? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more hidden Hollywood truths. After all, in Tinseltown, every dance step hides a shadow.